We haven't talked much about the story of 16-year-old African-American girl, Gynnya McMillen, who was taken into custody by police after an altercation where she was allegedly the perpetrator in a misdemeanor assault against a victim with what police described as minor injuries. Some said that Ms. McMillen was involved in a domestic dispute. Police showed up, they took her into custody, and locked her up in a Kentucky juvenile detention center in January. Not 24 hours later, after being locked up for about 14 or so hours, she was found dead in a cell in that juvenile detention center. She was discovered in what's described as a sleeping position in a supposedly secure room at Lincoln Village Regional Juvenile Detention Center. The official story is she died in her sleep. Odd story, unusual story, not the easiest story to believe. This is the first such incident in 16 years in Kentucky. A preliminary autopsy showed, quote, no cause or manner of death, according to a statement released by authorities. There were no obvious signs of trauma. There was no drug overdose, and toxicology was going to take several weeks to get the results from. Lincoln Village policy, and this is where things start to get a little murky, requires observation checks be made on residents every 15 minutes. Okay, so every 15 minutes, juveniles in the center are supposed to be checked on. And in addition, they aren't even supposed to be left unattended in a room unless that room has a camera in it. Unclear whether the policy was followed in this case. A couple of more weeks have gone by since the incident happened. What else have we learned? Many interesting things. Number one, we've learned that Reginald Wyndham, a 10-year employee with the center, has been put on paid administrative leave for a little bit of a tongue twister there, Lewis. Put on paid administrative leave for failing to check on her every 15 minutes as required. So that, number one, Lewis, is already a question. If indeed this was just a random thing that happened, why does it also coincide, correlation, not causation, that she happened not to be checked on every 15 minutes, or at least that is what we are led to believe? That's sort of number one that starts making this a little bit unusual. We've also learned that Gynnya had been previously removed from her mother's custody and placed at Home for Innocence, which is a home for sort of a foster care facility for kids that are either abandoned or neglected or abused. And we've also learned that once in custody, Gynnya was not violent, but reportedly refused to take off a hoodie during a pat-down search. And according to the Kentucky Center for Investigative Reporting, officers took her down using an Aikido restraint move. Hypothetically, as some are speculating, maybe something in that story is not exactly true. Maybe she was taken down in a way that did somehow hurt her, in a way that hours later ended up with her dead, reportedly in a sleeping position in her cell. A number of questions, Lewis, around the story.
I mean, but presumably the autopsy would have shown that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So that is the other unusual thing somewhere we have to be getting some unusual, some incorrect information, right? Because on the one hand, there was no cause shown in terms of like a pre-existing condition by the autopsy. So the idea that she would just randomly die in her sleep while in this cell, hard to really believe. At the same time, the autopsy did not show any kind of trauma that would have caused the death. So something here is very much missing.
Now, what I would do is if I were a family member, I would have the body sent to an entirely different county, maybe in a different state, and have a different autopsy done.
If you had the money.
If I had the money, because I think that, well, we're trusting that's what's happening here. And if this is the mortician or whatever, the pathologist who works
Not
with...
the mortician,
pathologist who works with the police department all the time, sometimes there are some connections there, and sometimes things can...
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, we're the only people are starting to get very conspiratorial here, right? Understandably, because something is just not adding up.
I don't like the word conspiracy. I think someone somewhere is lying. But would you call that a conspiracy?
Well, I guess it would be, in the legal sense, it may be conspiracy to cover up what took place, right? Yeah, so in that sense, it could be a conspiracy. Very, very unusual and disturbing story, and we'll continue covering it and hopefully have something definitive at some point, although it obviously will not bring this 16-year-old back who died in police custody. Just absolutely horrible.
Gamefly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, you can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees. And our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.